Hi, welcome.
Good morning, everybody.
Hello.
Good morning.
Hello.
Today, NAMI Pasco, Vincent House Pasco, and Ashley Simpson from Medical Center of Trinity will be presenting on self-advocacy. So our title for today is Together We Empower Ourselves. And John and I are from Vincent House. My name is Kathleen Yetman. I'm the outreach coordinator, and I'll let John introduce himself.
I'm a member. I've been involved with Vincent House Pasco since probably September or October of last year. And a number of years ago, I was also at a clubhouse in San Diego called The Meeting Place. It's good to be here.
Thank you, guys. So who are we? Vincent House is a recovery through work organization for adults with mental illness. We are 18 and up, and the members run the clubhouse. So staff and members work together to keep clubhouse up and operating. It can be working in our culinary unit, on kitchen tasks and building stamina. It could be our business unit, answering all of our phones or running our front desk, as well as our member services unit, doing outreach and helping members find jobs if that's what they're looking for. Again, what is Vincent House? I can give a little background of the story of how Vincent House got started. So Elliot and Diane are our co-founders. We were the first clubhouse up and operating in the state of Florida 18 years ago. Their daughter was diagnosed with severe mental illness, and they couldn't find anything that really worked for her. So they went away and got trained in the clubhouse model, fell in love with it, and started it 18 years ago in Pinellas Park. They started with an ice chest and a grill, and now they have 3 beautiful buildings. We have another location in Hernando County that's been open for about 4 years. And here in Pasco, we opened on September 16th. So a little under a year. We have 40 members signed up to date, and we average between 5 and 10 members daily currently, but the building's expected to hold 75 to 100 members. John, do you have anything that you want to add about Vincent House?
I just wanted to talk a little bit about my personal experience. Last year, I was having a hard time. I have bipolar disorder, and I've lived with bipolar for about 30 years. And thankfully, I was in remission for about 10 years. With the anxiety of the pandemic, I started to relapse. My most worrisome symptom is manic anger and rage, including road rage. So it was a real godsend because I had learned about clubhouses a number of years ago to find Vincent House, and I initially Zoomed in virtually and immediately felt a great sense of support because everybody knew exactly where I was at and where people with recovering from mental illness were at. And then I started attending in person, and it was very grounding because I get up in the morning and I have a reason to go into my day. I get to Vincent House and I sign up for jobs, and I get to connect with friends and meet new people. And I want to go back to work part-time. So now I'm learning the discipline and the job readiness and getting up stamina, and staff are amazing in helping with updating my resume and getting me job leads. And when I get employed, the other thing is it's lifetime membership. All I needed was a psychiatric diagnosis. So even when I get employed, I'll still have access to all of the Vincent House member support services.
Absolutely.
So I'm Debbie. I'm the executive director over here at NAMI Pasco. With me today is Nicole Kelly. She is one of our amazing volunteers. She's also a participant. You all are going to hear some more from her in just a little bit. So what is NAMI Pasco? NAMI Pasco is an affiliate of the National Alliance on Mental Illness. We provide support, advocacy, outreach, and education to those with mental health conditions and their loved ones. We do that through support groups, educational classes, and presentations like the one you're on right now.
So what is self-advocacy? The definition of self-advocacy is the action of representing oneself or one's views or interests. There are 3 parts to becoming an effective self-advocate: knowing yourself, knowing your needs, and knowing how to get what you need. Recovery from a mental health condition is a process of change through which individuals improve their health and wellness, live a self-directed life, and strive for their full potential.
10 steps to being an effective self-advocate include the following. Number 1, believe in yourself. Number 2, know your rights. Number 3, decide what you want. Number 4, get the facts. Number 5, plan a strategy. Number 6, gather support. Number 7, target efforts. Number 8, express yourself clearly. Number 9, assert yourself when needed. And number 10, be firm and persistent.
John, you want to go ahead and read this one?
Yeah, if you can do the drop downs. What are different ways to self-advocate? Whether you are in person or over the phone, advocate for yourself when managing doctor's appointments, medication adjustments, SSI, SSDI, and Medicaid, healthcare, medical records, patient rights, employment, voting registration, housing.
With that, we turn it over to Nicole to tell her story.
Hi, I'm Nicole. I am a mom, wife, daughter, sister, and most importantly, a self-advocate for myself as well as my children. I currently work part-time and participate in NAMI programs, including other resources. It has been quite a journey of many ups and downs, a great deal of knowledge learned, and lots of lessons. I was diagnosed with OCD, anxiety, depression, and ADHD. When I was growing up, I had never heard about mental health. I was a very quiet child, and back then, talking about your feelings and such didn't really happen. I did experience some traumatic events growing up and in my teens, but back then you just got through it. There weren't commercials about mental illness, no classes to educate about, and social media didn't exist like we have today. After the birth of my son, I was diagnosed with postpartum depression. I was not very familiar with the term, and my birth of my first child was completely fine. I remember not feeling myself physically, so I mentioned that to the doctor at my 6-week checkup and discussed my symptoms. He suggested I start taking medication for the postpartum depression. Not really understanding, I declined to take the medication. The symptoms worsened and the anxiety grew. I then remember going to my primary doctor and was given samples of an antidepressant, basically being told to take the medicine and wait for it to start working. I remember feeling lonely, hopeless, and defeated. I was experiencing so many symptoms and feeling so many emotions. This was new to me, and I didn't know where to start. On my own, I started researching tirelessly all that I could to learn about anxiety and depression. With saying that, I began asking more questions. I had always been told no question is stupid. If I didn't agree with something the psych said, I asked about it. I also brought my mother to appointments in case I forgot something. My mind would race nonstop so I could be forgetful. Even to this day, if a major life event happens and an episode occurs, I have my mother or husband with me for support. Research was key in my recovery. I am a firm believer that knowledge is power. Now I have to admit that in the beginning, I would research too much, meaning obsessively researching multiple websites over and over all the time. Eventually, I learned which sites were reputable and which were not. This helped me to focus on the facts and to apply what I learned to my mental health. I still to this day am learning about my mental health conditions. One of the hardest lessons I learned was there was and is no magic fix. Taking the correct medication as prescribed, going to therapy, eating healthy, exercising, sleep, and self-care all play important roles in your mental health. It was hard, but I learned that there was nothing wrong with taking medication and that I also had to put in the work by going to therapy, having a support system, and community resource like NAMI Pasco. My journey has not been an easy one at all. I have been on what felt like an emotional roller coaster. searching for the right psych, a new therapist, but most importantly, listening to my body and speaking up. I've been through many sleepless nights, lots of fear, lots of tears, fearful, and doctors who would not take me seriously. I would move up 10 steps and then stumble backwards. I started to look at it as a challenge, and I was not going to stop until I found the answer. Self-acceptance is another big contributor as well. I used to dwell on the mental condition and just wanted to feel better. Self-acceptance takes what feels like a huge weight off your shoulders. I did not want to be seen as a label or feel like I was being labeled. We are not defined by our mental illness, but by our actions and how we make someone feel. I know that feeling of being tired and not having the energy to move forward. Remember, you don't have to do this alone. Please reach out and utilize the local resources for your mental health. I am still learning and hope to be able to use my experience to help others in the community by becoming a peer specialist. You too can become your own self-advocate. I wish you all nothing but the best. God bless.
Thank you, Nicole. That was awesome.
Benefits of sharing your story. There are many benefits to sharing your experiences. Number 1 is personal growth. Number 2, better care and support. Number 3, connection. Number 4, truth. Number 5, self-esteem. Number 6, empowerment. There may be many pleasant surprises for you too. You may learn that not as many people as you think stigmatize people with mental health conditions. Many are empathetic, compassionate, and understanding. Some care for friends or loved ones with mental health conditions, and some may even have mental health conditions themselves.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ashley Simpson. I'm an LCSW, which is a licensed clinical social worker at Medical Center of Trinity, Behavioral Health. I'm the program coordinator for the intensive outpatient program for adults and partial hospitalization for the adults. So it's a day program. We do group therapy Monday through Friday from 9 to 12, and then also 9 to 3:30. We also recently have started an adolescent program for adolescent mental health. It's Monday through Thursday. It is from 1 to 4 in the afternoon. They also come for group therapy. And so in that being said, I feel really actually humbled to come and talk to you guys today. Actually, I'm a little nervous, which is funny because I'm a therapist. I shouldn't be nervous because talking is what I do, but I'm a little nervous. But I wanted to kind of talk about the idea of self-acceptance in the context of self-advocacy, because without the idea of how we also talk to ourselves, or how we have this phobia called our euphobia. So it makes it a lot harder to figure out whether we're worthy of advocating for ourselves or not. So a euphobia is something that is, I would say, as it says on the screen, is ridiculous and absurd fear of being yourself. It's a lot of times when you let other people's opinions in and matter more than what you're thinking. This fear will hinder your growth greatly and diminish your chance of finding happiness, or even some sort of understanding of what happiness is. So with self-advocacy and hearing Nicole's story and hearing from everybody, the idea of self-advocacy is almost like your superpower towards working towards self-acceptance. Self-acceptance doesn't mean, because a lot of times people think it's like, oh, it means I love myself, everything's great and perfect. No, it's this awareness that I'm curious. Carl Rogers says it best, the curious paradox that when I accept myself just as I am, then I can work on changes. So this idea that I can work on change and work on self-improvement and change and be aware of who I am and be okay with who I am is a part of self-acceptance and recovery in mental health. So we need kind of both to work towards our recovery, meaning number one, being self-aware and understanding and advocating for our understanding of what our diagnosis is, what works for us, what doesn't work for us. really what Nicole was saying is, even as a therapist, I advocate for my clients. Part of this process is to be that advocate for what works for them and what doesn't work for them. So not listening to what other people feel, because what happens is you could go to, a good example would be, I know my worth and I know my opinion, and I know that if something in terms of my treatment plan is not working, I can also be okay to express that or look for other options in the future in terms of other treatment and other therapies and different things like that. But a lot of times we develop this phobia, which is a fear, that because other people say they know us best, or we know this person knows this and this person knows that a lot of times we just diminish how we see ourselves, and we don't take that chance to see or advocate for ourselves. So, like I was saying, we're not, by self-accepting, we're not saying, the biggest thing is a lot of people say, well, if I self-accept, that means I'm saying I'm broken or something's wrong. No, what we're saying is I'm aware of my worth, and I know that I'm more than what I'm feeling, which sometimes is just dark and I know I don't want to live in my past anymore, and I want to live right now, and I want to work through moving forward. It's what's called radical acceptance of seeing what I'm doing for myself right now. So I'm tired of missing out on everything that I can do in terms of treatment and recovery and advocacy. And I'm kind of figuring out, how do I move forward? And self-acceptance is a daily thing. It's not something that it's gonna wake up one day and it's gonna feel like 100% one day. It staggers. So the reality is the most confident person you see in life, even like myself, has to work on my own self-acceptance of my flaws, because we're human. We're all human. And I think the hardest part about this is looking at it and saying self-acceptance equals human, not perfection, because a lot of times people think self-acceptance means I have to be perfect, and it's not. It's more about, I'm human, I'm working towards my recovery, I know what works for me, this is why I'm advocating for myself, and I do matter, and so it's fear, which another acronym I like to use. I use a lot of acronyms. Fear is false evidence appearing real. So if you think about fear as an emotion, fear sometimes is false evidence appearing real. So like when other people have opinions, that fear grows inside of us and we doubt ourselves. And then we second guess ourselves. And then what happens is as self-advocates, we don't. Because I could probably think, how many people in here probably could have self-advocated sooner, but they were afraid because other people were like, no, stop. I raised my hand because I raise it high. You know why? Because it happens. And the reality is sometimes what we have to believe our lens and how we're seeing things and do things for ourselves and keep doing the research to know what's right for us, kind of like with Nicole and her sharing her story, and then realizing where I am, and it's okay not to feel okay on some days. That's a big self-acceptance statement that I say a lot for a lot of my clients when I'm doing therapy, when they're really frustrated about why they're feeling so down and stuck and overwhelmed. And it could be the fact there's a lot on everyone's plate, and it's okay not to feel 100% every day. We put so much pressure on this idea of self-acceptance being like 100% better. No, self-acceptance is accepting the day as it is and understanding that everything's okay even when you're having a difficult day, that you're doing the best you can, you're using your resources, you're doing everything to the best of your ability, and that we're not broken just because we're having a difficult day or a difficult week. Because a lot of times we automatically go, we're back to being broken. I hate that term. We're not. We're human. And sometimes I have to remind myself we're humans. And having to repeat that on, I call it like self-affirmations, keep repeating to ourselves sometimes, I'm human, it's okay, it's okay that I'm not having a great day. What can I do for myself? I know when I go to, so self-advocacy could be reaching out to my therapist and scheduling an extra session, that's self-acceptance. Going to the Vincent House and maybe talking and being productive. That's my other way of looking at self-acceptance throughout the day. There's a lot of things we don't realize we're doing for ourselves that looks like self-acceptance, because we really get caught up in that word of acceptance, because we were taught, some of us, that acceptance means completely whole, move forward, you know, but it's not. It's kind of, it's black. There's a lot of gray. So like acceptance is what I have control of in this day. What can I do for myself when I'm having a difficult day? And not going back to our past and beating ourselves up, and focusing on what I can do and take step by step. And this concept is one of the huge, like, difficult concepts for, I would say, everybody, because when you think of self-acceptance, I think a lot of people can think of like a lot of like happy, positive, you know, like feelings, right? And so when I'm talking about you can have difficult days, people look at me like, oh, that's interesting. No, it's because we're human. We're not robots. We're not built to be like robotic in our emotions, our feelings. We're all individuals. We see through things through different lenses, and how we cope through different lenses, and that's okay. It's just figuring out what our self-acceptance looks like through our own self-advocacy is different for everybody. And so when somebody says, that's like, it goes back to my quote, when somebody says that opinion that they're wrong, you're wrong. But that's what it is. It's an opinion. It's not a fact, because maybe they're not walking through your shoes, is what I'm saying. You know what I mean? If you know that your therapy is important to you, your medication, your routine is important to you, they're not walking or through your shoes, or you're through your lens. You're seeing things through your lens. And so that's the whole part of, how do I manage that euphobia, you know, that fear of and second guessing ourselves. Right. And by doing those things that Nicole was saying, empowering yourself, telling your story, asking those difficult questions. I love difficult questions. I tell all my clients when they first meet me and they start group that I might not be their favorite flavor of ice cream in my modality, and that's okay. Meaning I might not be everyone's favorite perspective. And that's part of my own self-acceptance as a clinician, but that's okay. I'd rather them find what they need and find that path they need by asking those questions to see if it is a good fit. Because reality is it's what you guys need. It's what we need as advocates for our clients and advocates for ourselves, is to make sure they're getting the best quality care possible. And by asking those questions, researching and doing the steps in therapy, by doing the work, or even going to Vincent House, you are working on that acceptance path. And it doesn't always feel like it some days, but you really are. And that's the beautiful thing, is that the fact that you keep getting up every day to take those small steps towards each day and live in that day helps reaffirm that self-advocacy and that desire to keep learning and growing. Because self-acceptance is also about self-improvement. So people are like, well, that makes no sense. Well, no, what needs to happen is when you're going to therapy, you're going to Vincent House, getting structure, you're changing your routine, you're seeing things that are no longer serving us in our past, right? Like the fact that I don't have a routine, or I don't have a consistent therapist. So example, my self-improvement and self-acceptance is showing that going to therapy matters, going to Vincent House matters, going to NAMI meetings, going to your doctor's appointments helps you work towards letting go of that past and focus on the right now, what you're doing for yourself. And that's the beauty of change. So they both do go hand in hand. And sometimes it's hard to see, but it does go hand in hand, that you need, between self-advocacy, you have to work on self-acceptance, because they go hand in hand. Because reality is if I can't verbalize what my needs are, then I haven't really explored who I am and what I need right now. And that's really kind of a crucial, important key, is what am I advocating for? And if I don't know, then that becomes the barrier. So they go hand in hand. And I was going to throw out any questions, because any questions or concerns. I'd like to answer questions.
This is John. I have a comment and then a question.
Sure.
I was really struck by a reference you made to, I think I'm paraphrasing, but it was educating patients or clients about their diagnosis. Because and this also links to what Nicole said about research. I spent so many years not really knowing and understanding my diagnosis. So it's kind of wandering in the wilderness. And when I finally got someone to clearly explain what bipolar disorder meant, what were the signs and symptoms, what I needed to watch out for, in my case, anger, it just transformed my world. And I think that it really speaks to the title of the presentation today, because we're talking about self-advocacy. And of course, I have to step up ultimately. I'm the one that has to update my resume. I have to go through the interview. I have to learn how to behave properly in a work context. But I only do that because I have all these other people supporting me and educating me and encouraging me to educate myself. It's what I call personal research. So I guess I didn't have a question. I had a comment and a thank you. So I really appreciated what you had to say.
You're welcome. And you're absolutely right. It's also the other part of self-acceptance is I need a team, right? Like the biggest thing is we like to be like, when we think of the word independence, right? We think, oh, I have to do everything on my own, independence, you know, like figure it out. But no, the team helps you do the independent thinking, right? Like what I say to my clients, I said it today to somebody today, actually. They're like, well, you guys give, you guys, and I said, no, we give you the tools, right? And you're here 9 hours a week or almost 30, depending on the program. And then you're going back out in the world out of the 24 hours in the day, and then the time you're not here, and you are working on those things we're giving you. So that's part of self-acceptance too, and doing the work is part of improvement and accepting that you, like you were saying, have to have a team of people to help you. And that's you're still, I'm 100% independent, oh, somebody has a cute dog somewhere. Oh, sorry. I love dogs, sorry. And so part of this is that team, having a team and using your team also equals independence, because you're accepting that me doing it on my own doesn't always work. Usually we think it's working, but what's working isn't really the healthiest sometimes for us with our mental health, right? So the team approach is really also me accepting help equals self-advocacy, accepting self-acceptance of needing help and being independent in my life is okay. That's the paradox right there. Like, so there's great, like if anyone knows me, like Elizabeth and everyone who's interacted with me, they know that I like gray, and people struggle with gray. What I mean by gray, meaning there's not gray hair, but gray. So like the gray is the fact that 2 things or 3 things can be true at the same time. And people are like, what? So like with self-acceptance goes back to, I can be independent and have help at the same time. And people are like, that makes sense. But what happens is we have to work on that fear factor of what am I missing? And maybe the opinions of people who might be helpful or might not be helpful, because it depends on the situation. They don't know if we don't communicate them to each other, right? Too sometimes, right? So like our team could be willing to help us, but if we're really stuck on this belief that independence means I have to do everything on my own, we're not really growing. So that open communication, like you said, John, like with your team to help you prep to get that job, to get to the steps, to work through things, is 100% you going to be going out there and doing that job interview, but the team is helping you and you're 100% still independent in that. So, and I appreciate you sharing that. Absolutely.
Yeah, and the only thing I'd like to add is that team members can be at all levels.
Yes.
My team is Vincent House. My team is NAMI. Yeah. In the past, and if in the future I need it again, my team will be, well, I have a psychiatrist and he's on my team.
Yep.
And a nurse practitioner, and I'm sorry, that's my dog. They're on my team. I'm just saying that we can have all sorts of people on our team for mutual support.
Absolutely, 100%. There's team members can look like, doesn't always have to be family. It could be NAMI, it could be Vincent House, it could be your psychiatrist, your nurse practitioner, your dog, your animals, their team. Not gonna lie, they're on your team. They love you unconditionally. It could be your therapist. It could be anybody. It could be close friends. It could be family. But you're still independently making those decisions yourself, ultimately. And that's part of the self-acceptance part of things in self-advocacy. Absolutely. Any other questions or feedback? Okay. So then who's?
No, you're good. If we want to
Okay.
switch to the next slide, and then there is another thing for questions and comments, and I wrote some stuff down. I was taking notes when you were talking, so we can go back to it a little bit. But this next slide is how to and what's next. So Ashley did a great job talking about your team, and sometimes it's just trusting that team and getting the team right for you. No, I don't like the first ice cream shop that I walk into. I go to another one the next time. It's the same with a therapist or any type of supports that you're getting. So if you don't like something the first time, I say keep on trying at it. So get a second opinion. If you don't like what you hear, don't go. If you don't like what your therapist is saying, or if you don't trust your therapist, look for another one that you do trust. Knowing what you need is important, and knowing that the person you're reciprocating that to is listening, I think is also super important. So have a support system. If it's too difficult for you to explain, ask someone for help. I know like for John and Nicole, just the two examples here, it's so important to get what you need and have that support system. I know just for me, coming to Vincent House is my support system as well. So reevaluate what's important to you. This just goes off of listening to what others have to say. Just because you don't like something, be open-minded to what the other person is saying, and maybe just rethink what your needs are, which Ashley touched on. Listen to what the other person is saying and ask questions for anything you don't understand. So John, you did a great job after Ashley spoke, knowing what your diagnosis is and knowing what to look out for. Knowledge is power. So the more that you know, the more you're able to advocate for yourself and get what you need and what the necessary things are. How to say something often makes a greater impression than what you say. State your message clearly and simply. Tell the person exactly what it is that you want. So going into a conversation that you already know is going to be bad and being angry at that conversation, or yelling or being loud, or turning the other person away and already shutting down what they're saying isn't going to get what you need any faster or quicker or better. So the way you say something is often important to get your message across. And then tell them why it is in their best interest to respond to your request. Speak loudly enough to be heard without shouting. So if you and a doctor are in a tither and you just don't feel like what your needs are getting met, just tell them why. Explain to that person why it is you need what you need for X, Y, and Z, and they're able to help better and get what you're trying to get across to them better.
Thank you, guys. Does anybody have any questions for any of our speakers today?
I really just want to say thank you to Ashley. I think you did an amazing job explaining self-advocacy and self-acceptance. And if there's anything that I would want somebody to take away after seeing this presentation, is to self-advocate for yourself and be an efficient and effective self-advocate, because nobody knows you better than you know you. And you know your needs better than anybody can try to explain them to you. So just knowing what you need and getting that across to the person you're trying to is so important, and getting a team together. So whether it's participating in NAMI or participating in Vincent House, knowing what's out there and the things that can help you to be a better person are just so helpful.
Absolutely. Anybody else have anything they want to add? John, I saw you unmuted.
Yeah, I just really wanted to acknowledge Nicole's presentation. It was just so heartfelt, and so many of the things she said touched me in terms of how challenging the journey is. And it's so clear that she has so much courage to persevere. And I just wanted to say thank you. It was a beautiful presentation from the heart, and it really, really moved me.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to give kudos and thank you to Nicole for giving her story and sharing her story, because that takes a lot of courage, and just to hear from her and hear her perspective, and it was just very heartfelt, and I'm super proud of her for sharing. I really am. It takes a lot of courage to share your story.
Thank you, Ashley.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? All right, our next slide gives you ways that you can contact us. If you're watching this at home, you may want to take a picture of this slide and save it in your phone under your favorites so that this information is always available for you. And with that, we thank you all for listening to us today, and we hope you have a fantastic Mental Health Awareness Month.